It is the deepest honor for me to introduce our guest today. We have someone who is an author, who is a lawyer, who is an academic, who has a PhD, and who has received an award by the Missile Man of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam himself. So I would welcome Dr. Sharmila Goge on board, and it is an honor to have you, ma'am. It is the greatest pleasure to ask you all questions that students have regarding the legal field, regarding the law field, and the first question we have is: you were living in UK, you've come to India. What is the life over there? What is the life over here? What are the differences? What are the good things about UK? What are the bad things about UK? What are the good things about India? What are the bad things about India? What are the differences?
Okay. All right. First of all, a very, very warm and a lovely morning to all of you. Thank you so much for the gracious introduction. I'm a very, very simple and a humble human being at the outset to inform all of you. I believe I'm an ordinary person, but maybe the positive souls around me, just like I'm Maanav, who has just introduced me, makes me extraordinary because my friends, my circle is extraordinary. I am ordinary. All right. So coming to the first question, I have lived few years in UK. I have lived in India for a number of years. What have I experienced in both the cultures? So, my dear students and other listeners who are listening to me, I'm a person who, first of all, believes in a very, very positive approach of life. Now, when we say positive approach, I will not believe in criticizing my country by comparing it with some other country. But nonetheless, we cannot overlook the factual aspects of life. So, with the regards to education, academics, and what is the core for the students who are listening to me, I would certainly like to share that the UK system of education, the life in UK, is much more practical based. Whereas what I see here, I have been juggling between India to UK even in my childhood. My father being a doctor based in UK for the last 45 years, we have been shifting. So the schooling I experienced in India was a rote learning system. You know, you will be given, for example, dictation is one component in Indian primary education, and they give you several spellings, and you like mad, you by heart CAT, cat, MAT, mat, RAT, rat, and you go on doing it. This example I have picked up because it speaks volumes about the differences in both the system.
Hmm.
In UK, when I was in grade fifth, we were never taught dictation, but we were taught to make our own spellings. So, like a huge spelling like convenience, conversation would be written there by the class teacher very lovingly, without showing that she's a teacher having any domination, any authority. And the teacher would tell us, students, look at this spelling, observe it, and make out as many as spellings you can make it from there. So we could easily make out at, to, if, the, rat, cat, the same things. So learning happens, but with happiness, with practical approach, and with intelligence, not with rote learning.
Hmm.
Apart from that, the lifestyle of people is absolutely different. The social responsibility, which we have badly experienced in COVID, this is also one reason. People are more responsible in United Kingdom as compared to India. So in India, it is like if you go to the rural India, you will see people clean their yards, what you call the angan in Hindi, and they will just keep the entire garbage next to that. You
Hmm.
won't see these systems there. So what I intend to say is we live to ourselves. We do not think on the larger perspective of the society.
Hmm.
Had that been the case, we wouldn't have had second wave taking away lives like this. We are hanging masks on our ears
Hmm.
without putting them on our nose, without
Hmm.
realizing how important social distancing is. So it's not for the government to make mandates, lockdown, lockdown, lockdown. It's for the public to understand. And that's where I feel there's a major difference in UK and India. As a child, I have been tremendously benefited by both cultures. Not only this, there are many aspects: upbringing of children, parenting the children. So in India, a parent has a different role. In UK, the parent has a different role. So that is also a very important aspect which
Different
I have learned.
role in the sense, like how different are we talking?
See, in India, to give you a very simple example, very openly on this platform, when you get advertisement of a sanitary napkin on television, if the child is, say, 8, 9 years old,
Hmm.
and the mother, father are sitting on the sofa, which is a common scene in Indian household, the child asks, Mama, ye kya hai? And the mother like shies away. And the mother says, nahi, 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 kuch nahi, change kar, channel change kar. If this is a scenario in UK and the child asks, the mother would explain him scientific basics of what a sanitary napkin is, when does a woman need it, what menstrual periods are. The child is satisfied. Whether he understands or no, that is fine. But I have observed in India, there are many aspects in parenting which go wrong. And then we blame our children. So, like that, there are so many aspects of life which differ in their culture, in our culture. Our culture is unique. I love our culture, no doubt about it. But we are not following our culture also completely. The
Precisely.
problem with
Yeah,
India
yeah, yeah.
is that we are neither complete Indian culture nor we are Western. We're mixed both and we are just going hayway.
Yeah, yeah, I get it. Like when we define Indian culture, we look at history, we look at the books that we used to
Yes,
follow. But
yes,
when I define culture, I define the practical on-ground reality that is going on, and that is very different from what is written in history as well.
yes. No, see,
Oh,
Indian culture, Manav, is one of the best existing culture on this planet. It is so rich in its heritage. It has the spiritual background, which teaches the way of living. But we have taken it absolutely in a wrong stride.
I think the one thing that is very predominant is that the domination follows hierarchy over here. As Indians, we are very authoritarian in nature. कि टीचर ने बोल दिया तो बोल दिया, पेरेंट्स ने बोल दिया तो बोल दिया. No matter if it's right, wrong, we cannot question, we cannot hold them accountable. So that A gives the child a certain sense of insecurity, a certain sense of complex, and B gives the parent or the teacher a certain sense of freedom. Because if we
Yeah.
follow the cycle, the child when becomes a parent, he's like, I have experienced this, now I am in power, so now I'll have the freedom. And this cycle
Exactly. I
continues,
mean,
this loop continues.
if you go 2 generations back, the life system in India was different because the parenting of that time was different. Then we came up with the concept of liberty. A newborn child is given so much importance to his self esteem, self respect, that you don't care what a senior citizen's self respect in the family is. Too much of liberty, too much of freedom. Every parent says, oh, I'm the best friend of my child. Do you realize your child has dozens of friends, but your child has only one parent? Don't give up being a parent just because you want to be a friend. Be friendly with the child, but at the same time, be a parent because he has only one parent.
Okay, moving on. This is about your teaching experience. A, when did you start? And tell us about your first experience. How was it? What was it?
Okay, all right. So how it started is I was always passionate about law and passionate about teaching. So when I completed my LLB, on the first day of my master's, we entered the class, and this was in the year 2000. And the faculty who was supposed to come to teach a subject called Principles of Legislation was absent. And my group friend said, Sharmila, tu hi padha dena. So that was the first day, actually, unofficially as a teacher. So I was a student of LLM, but I was well read on books of philosophy, which is the base of Principles of Legislation. So Professor Bentham's books. And I took my first class with my friends, and my friends said that you taught much better than our teacher. So I said, okay, so that's wonderful. Anyways, jokes apart, that was the first hand unofficial experience. The official experience was on 3rd of August 2003. This was when I completed my master's. That was the day when my results were out. My photograph was published in the newspaper as I had topped the university. And I went to meet principal of V.N. Patil Law College at Aurangabad, which is my in-laws place where I was residing at that time. And I gave an application to join as a faculty. So Mr. Patil, who was there, he said, Madam, our professor for human rights is absent today. So would you mind taking the class? So I said, oh, of course, I would love to. So he said, but are you prepared? I said, oh, that's fine with me. Human rights, I can always go on. And I gave the application. I entered the classroom, which was adjacent to the principal's office. And I took a class for 45 minutes and it was amazing. I mean, I felt so contented about it. And so did the students come and give the feedback to the principal that can we have this madam as a professor? And I got a call at 3 p.m. from the office saying that they want me to continue as a regular faculty there from tomorrow. And it was wonderful for me. I said, okay, without preparation, suddenly I go. So that was a very, very pleasant experience. That's how my journey started. Thereafter, I have taught in Government Law College, KC Law College, and for last 12 years, I'm teaching in Jitendra Chauhan Law College.
Beautiful. So what is the experience like teaching as well? So you've been teaching for last 12 years in JCCL itself. And
Yeah.
a decade has a completely different culture as well. A culture changes in 3 years, a mindset changes in 3 years. So I can assume we have a set of 4 different mindsets of students, 4 different set of cultures that you've experienced. What is the differentiating factors?
Yes. So overall, officially, I've been teaching for 18 years and unofficially 20 years. So 18 years as a faculty, I have seen variations in generation of students who come. The variation in students reflect in intelligence, reflect in behavior, reflect in response to the questions, reflect in inquisitiveness towards the studies. So these are the core factors which I identify in the students, and one most important is the bonding between the teacher and the student. I remember the first batch I taught in KC Law College, after Government Law College. KC batch I remember precisely because this was a batch where I had a lot of interaction. I had taken the students to a Delhi trip visit, so we had spent a lot of time together. The students I had in 2003, 2004 were very different as compared to my students in 2021. Of course, 21 is an exceptional year. I've not even met any of my students this year, but I mean, we've been meeting virtually.
Virtually, yes.
Virtually, yeah. So a personal touch is missing, which plays the magic in life. Okay, so of course it's beautiful that we can still interact with each other thanks to the technology, but the human connect is still missing according to me. So what I see is the intellect level of students is improving, but the desire to study in a serious mode is completely missing out. Students are trying to adapt to shortcut methods because in 2004-5, I have seen students referring to reference books. Like if I say you have to study constitution, my students did not hesitate to refer J.N. Pandey, they did not hesitate to refer M.P. Jain, D.D. Basu or Shirvai's books, which are voluminous. But today's generation, I see everybody wants to refer to certain notes, which I do not want to name in the interview here. So the notes are shortcut, question answer format. You are limiting your knowledge by going to shortcut methods. So when you go and appear in the courts, the judge doesn't ask you a specific question where you have a typical answer. You need something innovative, which you can get only from reference books. I mean, that's how you equip yourself with quality education. Another thing, as I said, the respect factor between a teacher and a student has also dramatically changed over the years. So when I was a student, if I see my teacher, my head used to go down with respect, saying, good evening, ma'am, good morning, ma'am. That's the gesture. The tone used to be different. When I became a professor, I saw some of my students. Some of them used to wish in the corridor, some of them didn't wish. Now the wishing factor has changed from good morning, students have come to hi, what's up, ma'am? So that maybe the cultural differences, I won't say it is a disrespect, But yes, it matters for a teacher that how the students are addressing, whether they are wishing good morning, good evening. These are basic mannerisms which are missing today because maybe the children don't find it important. When a teacher enters a class, students used to stand up with respect. These days, people feel, I mean, there is an argument, should we even stand up when the national anthem is being played? So, why should I stand when my teacher enters a class? Doesn't mean I disrespect her if I sit. So these are the changes which I have experienced. Nonetheless, I mean, being on a positive note, yes, it's good to have students who are more technologically equipped, who are more literate with the recent technologies coming up. But I would still say that the present generation needs to be more sincere in its approach towards studies.
Hmm. I think the factor of getting into shortcuts also, the whole rote learning cycle,
Yeah,
it gets enhanced, it gets amplified once you get into the line of shortcuts.
yeah,
But somewhere again, a culture is defined. Like if I replace all the players of the current generation with a new generation, it will still continue the same way because a culture is not defined by the human efforts. There will be one or two
yes.
exceptions who will go through the entire research material if need be, but it is more so that we know that the exams are going to be conducted in the format that we have to study in. So what is the point of going through this entire thing? Like if if I take 10 people from the Indian education system, I put them in Columbia, I put them in Harvard, they are going to go through the research material itself because the system is defined such that you have to go through the research material itself. Over here, if I go through the research material, I have to go through the rote learning process as well. So it's a very I would say it's a loop again, right? I will go through shortcuts, then I'll enhance the rote learning circle. The rote learning circle demands me to demands me to go through the shortcuts. Like that entire loop needs to be broken somewhere somehow if we want to see the change of core conceptual learning. This is again my opinion, my observation. So I'm not sure
See,
about it.
I feel that we can easily break this entire circle, which is absolutely not rotating in the requisite direction for the benefit of the students. Very simple. Change the teaching methodology, change the examination patterns, and you get it. If I give you a MCQ, for example, Indian Constitution was drafted in the year, okay, 1946, 1949, 1950, goes on. You have a very easy option to tick. But if I give you a situation based case, it may be even an open book. Rather, I'm a person who strongly feels that law exams should be open book exams. Law students should be given situation based questions, right? This is this. A killed B. B was holding a knife. A kills him. Now, following other reasons, and give the answers. So, you may be in a position to refer the sections, refer the relevant material, and then give the answer. Because when you start practicing law, you don't have to tick MCQs. You have your books open before the judge, you read out, you refer anything what you need. What is the core of legal education? Not testing your memory. Nobody is going to ask you, give me which section this is, what is this related to. It is testing your knowledge, testing your common sense and your logic. So, law is based on common sense, and that should be enhanced, and that can be enhanced when you get a situational based question. So, that's my take on it.
Fair enough. But for that, I think we have competitions like the moot court that happen exactly in the framework that you asked for. What is lacking in the moot court that we still need to have an examination like such?
See, when you talk about moot courts, Manav, moot courts out of a batch of 240 students, hardly 10 to 15 students participate in the entire year. I've been handling moot courts for last 16 years of my teaching career. So I'm very well versed that it's only a group of students who are inclined towards participating in moot, making the efforts and putting forth their endeavors towards it. Rest of the 220 students out of one batch never think about moot courts unless they come to the third year, specifically in Mumbai University, when we have it as a mandatory practical subject. So moot court cannot be a substitute to have proper exams with situational based questions. Now your question, the next one is, what is the difference in moot courts and real life? So moot courts, you have a limitation. You have time limitation. Rather, the petitioners and the respondents are given 20 minutes each, including the rebuttals and sur-rebuttals. You have a fact which is given to you as a moot court problem. You cannot assume anything. You have a limited scope of application of laws because you cannot go beyond the facts. You have a limited scope of giving your arguments before the court as the time is limited. Nonetheless, it is a hands-on experience to learn advocacy skills and research and drafting skills for the students. But in these cases, neither there is a live judgment which comes up as a decision given in the real court. And the whole setup is like a mock moot court, like a mock court. And therefore, it is limited to a learning purpose as a competition. It cannot be equated on par with the examination as such.
Fair enough. I think even in the moot courts, we don't have the ability to get witnesses, the ability to ask witness, get witness on trial, find out a
that
witness.
you get, sorry to interrupt you, that you get in mock trial. We do have mock trial competitions also which are conducted, and that do, I mean, these competitions do give a lovely experience, enriching experience to students, how to cross-examine the witness, how to conduct a trial. But again, as I said, all students do not participate. No colleges make it mandatory for the students to be a part of it. It is as per your choice.
Okay, now this is going to be, the next question is going to be sort of personal, and we are jumping questions over here, but I think we're just going with the flow of conversation. So in your professional life as a teacher, is there a time that you felt failed? Is there a time when you felt like a failure? And how did you bounce back from there to being where you are?
Okay. To be very honest, in last 20 years of my teaching career, I have really never felt as I have failed. I started off telling you that I look at life with a very positive approach. Sometimes I do get upset on certain experiences of my students who fail to answer what is Article 32 when they reach the 6th semester, which is taught to them in their first semester. So I, as a teacher, where I put in my heart and my soul in my teaching, and I see to it that from first semester, I teach students the basics, the realities, and not the bookish knowledge. But yet, 6th semester, when I get a response from a student that I'm before the High Court under Article 32. So that is the time where I feel, oh goodness, what have I been doing for so many years? But yes, that cannot be considered as my failure. See, as a communicator, as a teacher, my role is to connect with my students beyond my communication. I may transmit so many things from my end, but whether they are received at your end is not my responsibility. My responsibility is to try my level best that I make an emphatical statement which completely goes in your mind. Rather, it goes like a sharp lightning in the sky. But if it doesn't, I am not to be blamed for that. Therefore, I do not look at my life as any failure anywhere in the last 20 years. I'm wonderfully happy with whatever I've been doing, and I'll keep it doing.
Great. So then how about if there was a failure in your student life? Because students go through failures. In the recent beings, they cannot handle failures. We've seen people go through all sorts of mental health issues, all sorts of depression just because of one particular examination they failed in. How do you they deal with that, or how have you dealt with it if you ever had a failure?
Yes, we have had many such experiences in the past. Many students, I remember one of my students, won't name her, in the year 2012, she had asked a question in the classroom to one of the other teacher, and the other teacher did not appreciate the student asking such a question, and for no reason the teacher lost her cool, and without responding to her question, she said that you are so immature that you don't even understand these things, you lack common sense, you should not continue legal education. So the girl was completely frustrated, felt very, very humiliated in front of the entire class, which was the second day of LLB for that child. And she cried, and next day she made an application that she wants to cancel the admission. Now, this student came to me and she said, Madam, I have made an application, so and so, and ma'am, I want to give up because this was all happened yesterday. So I said, wow, what a attitude you have, my dear. Is this the way you look at life? One failure, you look at it as the end. See, from this experience, what I learned is that this generation is overworked with reactions. There are two aspects, response and reaction. The student generation today is very, very prompt at reactions, but very, very bad at response. You get a message on WhatsApp, how quickly you react. Okay, you may pass a good comment, you may criticize it, whether it is government, whether it is COVID, whether it is Bengal election. You all are ready to react to it. How many of us actually respond to the situation? I believe the students who feel frustrated and disgusted with the failures what they face in life, they need to understand that failure doesn't need reaction. It needs a response which is constructive, a response which is positive. Because if you understand the difference between responding to situation, you will never get frustrated and never get angry. These kind of reactions are short-lived in terms of reaction, but long-lived in terms of its impact. Therefore, one should learn to respond. So like this, there have been many examples where students have felt frustrated, fed up, could not cope up with work. You know, in Mumbai, most of our students are working. And earlier we used to have lectures at 6 to 9 p.m. in JCCL. So students used to rush at 7 o'clock, ma'am, late ho gaya, bhagna pada office se, or 1 week could not attend. So there is this situation where we need to understand what the students are going through and then spare some time. In fact, I have been emphasizing on this point that there should be one lecture in a week which does not talk about any technical subject, but it talks about life. It talks about handling situations, talks about motivating our students, inspiring our students because they need it. So that's how I deal with situations.
If we are talking about emotions, if we are talking about life, there was a very interesting question that came to me just after the moot court when they knew that I was doing a podcast and all sorts of things. One question that came to me was that the person read all the facts, the person watched all the proceedings, and he's like, if I were in those shoes, I would fight it like so and so, to an extent that he, in order to win, he would be humiliating the defendant. The case was something on the grounds of that a girl was getting harassed by a person and she picked up a gun, she shot at him, and all sorts of things. So the guy said, if I was the lawyer for the person who's dead, I would fight it such that I would make sure that the girl ends up in jail. I was like, amazing, this is your winning strategy, great, you won. 2 minutes later, he comes at me, he's like, bro, I just put an innocent person who was trying to defend herself in jail. How do I deal with that? And we were just sitting with that thought all this while. And when the thought of real court comes in, if I am defending, let's say, an insurance company and someone who's deceased broke certain things of a contract, breach of contract, I am going to go to an extent. I mean, I have to, if I have to win, I have to go to an extent of humiliating their family or humiliating that person in front of their family who is dead already, just to get a win in my arsenal or a thing up my sleeve that I've won this case. After I go home, I have to deal with it on my own. How do I deal with that?
All right. So you are talking about a conflict of consciousness, which comes in a law student or a lawyer in his future. So it's but natural that legal profession has that ethical dilemma, which we term it. Suppose there is a person who comes to me and says, okay, I have committed this offense, but I want you to defend me, like any other lawyer, right? So the lawyer knows that, okay, my client has committed a rape, but I have to defend. Your moral, your conscience tells you that you are defending a rapist, or you're defending a person who has committed whatsoever wrong. Your professional ethics tells you, who am I to hold him guilty for the offense which has not been proved? Always remember, this conflict between the moral conscience and the professional ethics will be there in your life, but the cardinal principle of law is nobody is is pronounced to be guilty unless he is proven guilty. So you are nobody to say that he is guilty, even if the accused himself tells you that I have committed this, but the law has not pronounced him guilty. Until the law pronounces him guilty, you have no question of doubting yourself on your moral conscience. Till then, you are doing your professional duty of defending your client. So the conflict between moral consciousness and professional ethics has to be balanced in such a manner that my role is a lawyer's role to defend my client. I am not concerned with what actually the client has done. Otherwise, you are doing injustice to your professional ethics. So it's a very beautiful technique which one needs to learn to balance morality and professional ethics.
It's similar to, let's say, if I was in the army and there is a war situation going on and I killed someone. Not for a moral sense, I am a killer. I just killed someone, but from
Yeah.
an ethical standpoint, I defended my country. So, like, you will have to define your role such that karna hai to karna hai. There's
Yes.
nothing you can do about it.
Yes.
Okay. Speaking of which, if if we have to do it, is there some practical technique with which one detaches themselves from the case, such that all of these thoughts, all of these issues do not come in mind?
Yes. See, the medical and the legal profession, both professionals need to understand the basic foundation of their strength as a professional, whether a doctor or a lawyer, resides in being detached from the patient and the case or the client. If you are attached to the patient, I'll give you an example of a medical professional to further justify how it goes with the legal professionals. So if I am a doctor and I'm treating a patient for last 3-4 months who has severe injuries, now since I meet the patient every day, I develop a bond, I develop feelings, emotions, I feel, oh, the patient is such a pretty girl, blah blah blah. The patient also reciprocates and we develop a relationship. Now I have to take the patient, suppose she is there for a kidney transplant, and I have to perform the surgery. The first rule of medicine as the medical professionals is never to be attached. The minute I have attachment, suppose I hold the forceps in my hand to proceed with the surgery, my hand starts shaking. Emotions are strength of human beings. At the same time, if not used in the proper direction, they become the weakness of human beings. Therefore, if you attach yourself with the patient beyond the professional limit, you won't be able to, forget a surgery, even to inject a particular syringe in the body, the hands will shake. Coming to legal profession, you get too attached to the client or the case. You should get professionally attached and not emotionally, because emotionally, if you get attached, the repercussions are seen in your arguments with the other counsel. Couple of minutes back you mentioned about the moot court and the student coming and saying कि मैंने बिचारी को उसको जेल में डाल दिया. This actually will happen if you are so concerned about your client beyond your professional limits. You may try and get so aggressive in the court against the other lawyer that you will not be in your professional appearance as a lawyer. Therefore, to perform a composed argument before the court, you should be detached from the emotional stress of the client and the case and just be a lawyer a professional arguing the case and defending your client.
So I think one of the techniques for this could be to view the entire case like it's a game, to gamify it, so that the win or the loss doesn't matter without stakes. I mean, this is a very bizarre and a very vague technique, but if it works, it works, right? So every
Yeah,
argument that you make, everything that you do in the court or outside should be considered as a move that you
yeah.
play in a game. And that's how maybe you can help go through it. Okay, now we have a very interesting question. Tell us more about, so while doing certain research, uh, there is a fan of stand-up comedy that came to me, and he said that comedians are facing legal cases, comedians are going through law, and he specifically mentioned your PIL against the comedy collective AIB, and he said,
Mm-hmm.
why should a comedian, an artist, face any legal repercussions for expressing art?
Mm-hmm.
What is the need? I mean, he's just
All
doing
right.
a work of art, so you won't file a case against a painter for a bad painting, right? That is a
No,
question I got.
yes. Even there are cases filed against painters for indecent painting, and Mr. M.F. Hussain too has not been an exception, who is one of the most renowned painter of this country. So that is not the case that there are no action against artists if they do something wrong. Well, the stand-up comedy is different from the AIB. Why I took action against AIB, I would quickly take you through that.
Hmm.
AIB roast show. So first of all, the roast shows entered India with these stand-up comedians. Roast comedy has never been a culture of India. It is, of
Hmm.
course, very prevalent in the Western world. And as I said earlier, that we are blindly following the Western world. So roast comedy cannot be an exception. Anyways, AIB was the beginning, like 2015 was a beginning to have the roasts. These days it has become too common. Like these days, every web series you have, there is not a single dialogue without a bad word which is used.
Hmm.
Now I term it a bad word as per my generation. Your generation terms it the real language. Your
Hmm.
generation finds it that this is what it is, this is how people converse.
Hmm.
So that's the difference. Well, AIB, the objection was not on the roast show or the stand-up comedy. The objection was making the show live on YouTube. Whatever happened in the sports club at Worli was within the four corners of the walls.
Hmm.
It was to a limited class of people who had bought the tickets and who had agreed to be a part of that comedy show, which was Karan Johar, Arjun Kapoor, and other people in it. But when you put it on air, it is open for the public to view. The public who was viewing, experiencing, and enjoying the roast show in the hall was a different class category totally. When you make it, when you put it on air and make it open to the public, anybody and everybody from every corner of the country will view it. So when you make statements, I would not be even in a position to pronounce those words because it's against my culture to say. But to say that if Preeti Zinta was in this particular show, she would have enjoyed this as if she was dash dash by 1,000 men.
Hmm.
So this is looked upon as a very entertaining statement. Preeti Zinta personally had no objection against it. She did not take up her action. She was fine with it. But a person like me who feels that this is a mode of outraging the modesty of a woman, it is not only vulgar, but it also reflects obscenity. When we say that don't stand-up comedians have their right to express themselves, undoubtedly they have. We have freedom of speech and expression under Article 19(1)(a) of the Constitution. But we also have a reasonable restriction under Article 19(2) of the Constitution.
Hmm.
And we cannot simply overshadow it under the garbage of that I have this freedom of speech. So because I have freedom of speech, I will spill out anything what I want. I had taken up action against reasonable, on the basis of reasonable restriction of decency and morality. So the lines which were crossed, I will not be in a position to reproduce the statements, but yes, we had prepared a transcript and filed it with our PIL. So that was just one example. But another example to share with you was in the court on the first day. The honorable judge asked the other arguing counsel, who was Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani, appearing for the respondents, Karan Johar, and Mr. Sham Devani was appearing for me as the petitioner. The full form was asked by the honorable judge to Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani, what is AIB? And Mr. Mahesh Jethmalani could say, my lord, it is all India, dash, dash. So Justice Kanade was the judge on that specific date, and he said, Mr. Jethmalani, can you please spell it out? Tell us the full form. So Mr. Jethmalani says that I cannot say the word in the open court, my lord. So my concern, Manav, is that if you as such a senior experienced lawyer cannot utter the word in the open court because you feel it is disrespect to the court, because you feel the word is indecent, because you feel the word is incorrect to be pronounced, therefore you are not spelling out the word from B. But you expect that such shows should be viewed with my children, my daughters, my mother, my family, and we should not have objection to it. So you yourself are proving the case that you cannot pronounce the word in the court, but you can enjoy the show. So we had put up, my request was in this PIL, the prayer was to have a filtration, a restriction on the content which is on air on the YouTube. We do not have a control on YouTube, but then the content should be verified by the respective authorities before it is made public. If you have shows where tickets are bought and people are okay with it because they are above the age of 18, they agree to it, they belong to the class where for them using the word F dash dash is a common language. For me, hearing the word is quite indecent. So class of people differs, but when you make things public, you are putting it across to the whole public without realizing that you are crossing the limits of freedom of speech and expression. Therefore, there has to be a limitation. We ourselves, on one hand, are enacting laws like senior citizens maintenance and welfare because we are having too many cases of disrespect, torture, harassment to senior citizens. And on the other hand, we are encouraging things under the name of freedom of speech and expression, whereby we are not in a position to control or teach our younger generation how things are right, how things are incorrect. We have cases where the children have harassed the parents by using these words in their day-to-day life. So for a mother of 70-year-old, if the 40-year-old son tells her whatever the words are, she feels it offensive. She doesn't feel it's a local language. That's what the recent web series trend is, just to spread these words as a part of language, as a part of culture, which is not the case in India. Indian culture cannot be violated, cannot be put into such impurity with such mode of entertainment. Entertainment should be there, but it should be filtered. It should be to a limited scope. It should not become a day-to-day habit. I'm telling you, if you just want to analyze the difference in generations, so when I was a child, maybe there was a day when if I forget my pen and I go to school and I forget my pen, I would search my bag and I would say, oh God, I forgot my pen. After 20 years, the generation from oh God comes to oh shit, I forgot my pen. So from God, you have come to shit. And today, your generation from shit comes to OF. Yeah. This is so common that if you forget something, you enter the lift. I've seen students every day in the college. When I enter the lift, when I'm in the corridor, I hear students saying this. OF dash dash dash. ये तो रह ही गया, ये तो भूल गया. So this is where we need to be alert and aware about the difference between entertainment, comedy, rights, freedom of speech and expression, and reasonable restrictions.
Fair enough. I think the fact that what I this was a study that I read by some psychologist, some researcher. He
Mhm.
stated that culture has pop culture has an impact on the culture itself.
Yes.
So there was and he stated this very amazing argument. When the show Queen's Gambit was aired on Netflix, there was a
Hmm.
200% rise in the sales of chess sets directly. So he stated this as a direct correlation. So when an artist says that I'm doing this to express my art, he
Yeah.
has a certain responsibility that your expression will have an impact on the culture, and that is what you are accountable for. Provided you take this responsibility, you are allowed to do that. If you do not, then you cannot do that. I
True.
think
Very true.
that could be a reasonable justification and a reasonable grounds of exception between the artist and the person who's offended. When I as an artist say certain things, I as a podcaster even say certain things, bring someone on an interview, I have to know that there is 100 people at least who are impacted by this, who
Yeah.
may or may not be influenced by this, and I have to take the responsibility for those 100. But the confusion also comes, why should I take the responsibility if it is not viewed correctly? If someone under 18 is watching this on YouTube, it is his and their parents fault ना कि आपने अपने बच्चे को फोन दे दिया, मैंने थोड़ी बोला था देने को. So that is the biggest dilemma that exists, that is the biggest fight that exists, and how can one come to a reasonable grounds for that particular fight?
We as a country, India, we need to have a strong base of enacting laws, implementing laws. We have a beautiful set of laws in our country. The whole lacuna is in implementation. And as I said, the mindset of people. So the more you tell a child, don't do this, the more the child wants to do. That's the psychology. So you tell a child, don't open this channel. It's not meant for you. The minute the parents go out of the house, the child opens that channel. The child wants to view. As a result, see, what can be done is one aspect, but what is happening is a major aspect. Whatever cases we are having of children under the age of 18 being children in conflict with law is all a result of such lack of parenting, lack of governmental authorities, lack of rules implementation. This is the core of it. So it is high time. Freedom, liberty should not be labeled under this pretense that we are living in the internet age. This is happening in USA and hence it should happen in India. We don't want to be Pakistan. Okay, we don't want to ban internet. I'm not saying ban internet. What I'm trying to say is we need to have safe modes of executing things in our life, in our country.
Hmm.
When we say that okay, this is YouTube, you said, how will I know if a child below under 18 is using it? I have done my job. Well,
Hmm.
the parents have to take care of it. That
Hmm.
what kind of gadget are you giving your child? Is it that the earlier generation had mobiles? Today everything has become online, so it is a mandate. Time is changing and so the needs and the lifestyles are changing, but it cannot be unrestricted. What my point is, we may have liberty, we may have freedom, we may have everything, we have a choice to live as per our aspirations, but we should have restrictions and the balance has to be maintained, else there will be chaos in the society.
Hmm.
Another 10 years or 20 years down the line, I mean, the parents will not be respected as parents. Of course, today itself we can see
Hmm.
what the problem is. It's not the lack of immunity today, it's the lack of humanity in the society.
Hmm.
The human values have perished completely. So we have to look at things that how can we improvise on these aspects to control the malfunctioning or control the misuse, I would say, of certain aspects. And at the same time, even the artists who have understood that you can cash on certain what you call as, I won't call it a filthy language, but slang beyond the normal slang. So they have understood that the more slang we use, the more bad words we use, the better is the TRP and the better is the publicity, of course. So there has to be an understanding. We say below 18 cannot be viewed, but all the web series, including Mirzapur, have been viewed by children who are 10 and 11 years of age. And they are of tender mind. They tend to imitate what they see, what they hear. So that needs to be taken care of.
Okay. So if you were someone sitting on the board who had the power to implement and execute, what are the changes you would bring directly? Because you say that needs to be taken care of. I assume you are demanding that to the authorities. Let's say you are the authority who has to take care of this, who has to strike up a balance or a reasonable ground between the art and the artist and the viewers and the people who are getting offended. What would you do to satisfy both the fronts? Because we cannot look
Yes.
at it from just one front, right? We cannot look at it from the audience's front. We have to look at it from the artist's front as well. He has to get the work.
Exactly. We have to look at it from both the fronts, but the most important is we have to look at it from the national interest. We cannot compromise with the interest of the public at large. We cannot compromise with the interest of the nation at large. Okay, one artist says, I'm going to earn on this. He has a right to trade and profession, but yet he has the reasonable restrictions to be complied with. So I basically feel if I was in authority and power, there has to be a specific guideline. Today, whatever we have, it's kind of a blanket. Of course, fortunately, last month we had the OTT rules which came up. Otherwise, there were no rules, regulations for the OTT. And we could experience the chaos happening in the society. But there has to be specific guidelines which will not be biased towards one side, only the audience or only the artist. Merely laying down guidelines is not enough, but those need to be complied with. My point is that we as a nation have wonderfully developed over the last 7 decades, but where have we failed is something where we need to ponder upon. We have failed in implementing the guidelines, rules, regulations which are made in this country. So if I say that whatever is uploaded on the YouTube, we have no control because there's no head office of YouTube in India, then I would say that there should be a system where the content is verified first by the Indian Ministry of Broadcast and Telecast, and then it should go on air. I'm not trying to say that there has to be a complete heavenly language which is put so philosophical that the young generation may go off to sleep. I understand that. But then there has to be a balance. There has to be a better system of passwords, which can be done with this age of cybersecurity coming up, where it can be verified whether the person viewing it is below the age of 18 or above the age of 18. The technology is so advanced, it is not impossible for us to develop these things.
Yeah,
And
so
if we have such apps, if we have such things developed, we can certainly control the misuse of such mishaps which are happening in India.
I think the password idea makes a lot of sense. We create an IT infrastructure such that a certain person has an authority, and only reasonable people who agree to to watching that particular content have the right to that particular content. Otherwise, you don't have.
Yes.
It's the same as having a
Yeah,
theater in which
see,
18 plus movies are allowed, and then
it
there is
should
a
not
watchman
be
outside.
merely, it should not be merely, I agree, I agree, I agree, I agree. That's
Precisely.
such a format where you just go on agreeing to everything. There has to be a system which identifies the person with its age, who is, we have smartphones, we have smart technology. I open the laptop, it is face recognition. So why not have passwords with face recognitions?
Yeah, that
So
that
something of
is the
that sort.
most that I think is a very reasonable ground, that you have your own private center, you have your own private IT infrastructure, just like you would have your own private room to conduct a show. फिर
Yeah.
उधर you give access to the people who are your target audience, A are 18 plus and B agree to this. Then
Yeah.
if it's not on public, it makes the most sense. Then I think
Yes.
both the grounds are most heavily certified. Okay. A very heavy question which was insisted upon, insisted like crazy, is पैंडेमिक चल रहा है, इंटर्नशिप भी करना है, कैसे अप्लाई करें?
Yes. See, coming to internships, I would also like to add on that why is it important for students to do internship, and what is the need to look upon at our legal education, specifically in Mumbai University. Some subjects, Manav, which are very, very important to be taught to law students, like cyber laws, competition laws, space laws, maritime laws, as a part of compulsory subject, they are never taught. Forget that. Even when you people are studying law of torts as the first year students, you don't study Motor Vehicles Act, which is mostly used for your practice. So the education has to be practically oriented. It cannot be theoretically based completely, which is the case in our university. The syllabus has not been changed over the years. We still come, enter the classroom, we just talk about sections, articles, and we move out of the class. That is not the way students should learn law. Interning is a very vital aspect of legal education, but unfortunately, the Bar Council of India has put up restrictions that a student can intern only during his summer break and winter break. I personally completely disagree with this kind of rule. It absolutely is based on unsubstantial reasoning. You feel the students will not study if they are sent to internship. Do you realize how much the students learn while they are interning? Much more than when they are sitting in the classrooms or listening to such kind of rote learning lectures. And when you say students must intern only in summer and winter, it's absolutely unreasonable. In summer and winter, the courts are not functioning regularly. You only have a vacation court. So the child is deprived of attending proper matters and regular courts. The law firms are mostly on vacations because they too get break only in summer and winter. And that is the time when the Bar Council of India very intelligently advocates to send students for internship. I absolutely disagree. I believe students should be interning throughout the year. They must intern, they must get hands-on experience. You learn only theory in the classrooms. 3 years LLB, you pass out, you ask a person, have you read about the High Court rules? No, nothing. Because the High Court rules are never taught in college. PIL is taught as a topic in Constitution and Administrative Law. Has anybody ever discussed the rules for filing a PIL with the student? No. My concern is practical based teaching and learning pedagogy is required in Mumbai University. With regards to how to do internships in COVID, now this is an exceptional situation. So for me also, if I want to take up interns, if I want to encourage internships, I'm the placement faculty in charge. My difficulty is most of the offices are shut due to COVID. Every law firm, every lawyer is not happy with online internship because online internship is an added liability for the lawyer or the law firm. There is nothing much as learning beyond research. If I have to teach drafting, suppose if I say, all right, Manav has joined, he needs to draft a notice. You first need a draft of notice. You blindly cannot look into that and the given facts to be replaced by the previous notice. You must know how to put in the words correctly. What should the law be there to be applied? So in COVID, for the first years, I'm sorry to say it's little tough time. We will have to wait till the scenario dilutes a bit and we get back to our routine life. But somewhere in the month of June, we hope after the exams of the first semester, students can start interning. In the last winter, November, December, for JCCL, almost 40 students have been placed as interns.